Back inside the Kickback Jacks on Battleground Avenue, set for another Football in Focus for a Thursday. Good to be along with you, along with Joe Sirera for the News and Record.
Thank you.
Getting set for what? This is week number 6 this week?
Week 6. Hard to believe. It goes by
feels like
fast.
It's week number 1. It's so warm out there.
Yeah.
The weather is really
warmed up
again.
Yep.
This kid's got to get back on the cramp check. Watch out for the cramps and get back on the fluids.
Hydrate.
Going to be a busy week. That'll be kind of a semi-busy week because some teams were off this week. How about that win by Dudley last week? That was a statement game. I think it was a statement game. I think Rush came in with very little rust. And again, if he doesn't play in that game, I don't think Dudley wins.
Yeah, he's been a key for them. I mean, they're to their offense at least. First 2 games of the season, obviously against weaker competition with Carver and Ragsdale. And they scored, I believe it was 123 points in those 2 games. And then they struggle a little bit. He goes out with a concussion early against Page. They get 19 points in that game. He doesn't play against Durham Hillside. They get 14. He comes back. They rode him in the second half of that game. I mean, it was a great performance by him. And he's the difference with that offense.
Once Nigel Fitzgerald went out, he got ejected from the game.
Yeah.
It seemed like that kind of forced Dudley in some ways. It kind of caused Dudley to kind of turn up the pressure. And it's almost like they put like raw meat in front of Rush. He saw it and he ran with more determination once his teammate got knocked out of the game.
Yeah, I think the offensive line played a big role in that too. I mean, he ran through a bunch of tackles, but they were getting him to the second level a lot. And I think they all realized, hey, Nigel's not here. You lose your first 2 quarterbacks. Gerald G. Simpson's out. And you lose Quad Monroe, and you're back to Alston Hooker. And they realized, hey, we're going to have to run the ball to win this game. And they did it very effectively. I mean, Alston Hooker made a huge pass, completed a 9-yarder on a 4th and 9 to keep one of the drives going. But Zurich Rush was the man in that game.
And you look at Dudley, they've had all these injuries and had to have lineup changes. This may be a good thing for Dudley because they're adjusting. They've always been good about adjusting to the opposing team's offense once they get a couple of a quarter or 2 into the game, make some great adjustments defensively, get ready to go for the game for the rest of the way. But they're making adjustments on the fly throughout the game. Lose all these defensive players, lose some offensive players. You lose 2 quarterbacks in the same game, lose your top receiver. And I guess Fitzgerald will be out a couple of games now, from what I hear.
Yeah.
And they've made some good adjustments over there. But now they got to find, I guess, a new primary receiver, I would think.
Yeah.
Michael Wyman may be the man. I'm not sure.
Michael Wyman may be the man. I think you'll probably see a little more of DJ Crossan on that side of the ball.
I'd like to see more of that guy. I love that guy. On that punt return, I mean, they called it back but he was so good at punt return. It was like, this is going to be the longest play. As long as this play takes, it's going to take a while. He's going to score.
Yeah.
The guy's great. He's just, I mean, it's worth an extra $5.
He loves the open field. When you give him any space to operate, and he's great. I mean, I can definitely see him returning punts when he gets up to Virginia Tech. But they may move him over. But if they do, if they're down Quad Monroe and G. Simpson again, then they're thin in the secondary. So you've got to watch your snaps. You've got to watch how many reps guys are getting to keep them fresh. But the great thing for them is the week off.
Long break. Yeah, got a couple weeks to get ready for the next game against Southwest Guilford. You look at Monroe, he came back that night, went back on defense, I believe. Did not come back on offense. The quarterback came back on defense, which is a good thing because I think he was able to walk off the field without too much help. But again, G. Simpson had a lot of help to go off the field.
Yeah, I mean, a couple people saw him walking on the sideline during the second half of the game. I didn't see that, but they said that he was moving around okay. It was a really nasty looking play. Got stood up, bent back. Nothing dirty about it whatsoever. Just a guy finishing a tackle and his left leg kind of got bent at an awkward angle. But, you know, another testament to the depth that Dudley has. When you can lose 2 quarterbacks, they're already down 3 starting defensive linemen. Nigel Fitzgerald's gone, and they go for 30 points in the 4th quarter. That's impressive.
And again, it's a testament to Rush and how hard he was running.
Oh, yeah.
Without him, I still don't see them winning that game.
I think you're right.
But that was a hard-hitting game by both sides. You saw guys going down from both sides of the line, and offense, defense, southeast.
And it wasn't cramping.
No, it was just hard hitting. There was some smacking going on out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a rivalry. There's a lot of, I don't know if I'd say bad blood anymore, but there's a lot of talking that goes on between those 2 teams, and they're bordering attendance zones. So a lot of the kids know each other.
And there's a few guys that were at Southeast who went to Dudley. Some of those guys have come back to Southeast with a new coach there. I think the kid that Fitzgerald got scrapping with, I think that young man had been at Dudley the year before. Now he's at Southeast. So a lot of that goes back and forth too. We're going to try to show you something. But you know, good ball game.
Oh yeah.
Hard fought contest. Good for Dudley. Got a couple weeks here for Southwest. That's a big opponent they've got coming up next.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the teams that they're going to have to beat if they're going to win the new Piedmont Triad 3A. Southwest has just been a roller coaster team. If the team that beat a couple of the teams beat High Point Central 27-0, beats Northwest Guilford 30-23. If that team shows up, they're going to be a tough team for Dudley to handle. If it's the team that lost at home to Ragsdale,
yeah, that's a 1-point game. I feel like they should have won from their standpoint anyway.
But lost early to Reynolds. I mean, you don't know which Southwest team is going to show up. If the good one shows up, they're going to give Dudley a good game.
It's going to be interesting too to see which Southwest quarterback starts that game. Devin Flowers, the freshman, or if it's going to be Jaron Rainey, the senior, because Rainey's been playing a lot more defense lately, and they've been giving more and more of the reins over toward the young quarterback Devin Flowers, who's played pretty well in his first year.
And they're still playing Mason Chu at times in certain packages. They've got some depth there and some talent at that position. But clearly Devin Flowers is the future, and I think a little bit of that with Jaron Rainey has to do with the fact that his future at the next level is going to be safety.
And that's a good thing too, when you can work that guy in that position as he gets ready to go to college the following season. So you prepare him more and more for what he's going to do at the next level. You don't hold him back. You need to do this for us because we need this year. We're going to give you the luxury of working on your spot for your future.
Yeah, and you put him back there with Nolan Johnson in that secondary. Those are two very talented defensive backs.
Where's Johnson going? He's committed, hasn't he?
Oh boy,
Appalachia, Western Carolina, something bigger.
I should know, and I'm not sure. I did talk to him when he committed, and I just cannot. I think he's going to ECU also. I think he's also going to East Carolina.
ECU's going to get him. They're going to get Rainey. They're going to get from last week Trey Love.
Trey Love from Southeast Guilford, a very good pass rushing defensive end. Yeah,
big, strong kid too. I thought he was one of those
tremendous athlete.
He was a perfect fit for that Dudley matchup because he could get in there and scrap with those Dudley players. And you got to have a guy like that. You got to have that guy. Here's something we got to commend Joe on. We got to throw a good one out for Joe because I remember back when the season got going, you had predictions for what we're going to see this season. One of the good ones you had was I know we're going to see one Friday night where it rains and the games will all be postponed. That's already happened, but I didn't get to get that.
They didn't all get postponed. There was that Ragsdale game where Malachi Manus went off for like 342 yards.
He might want to play under those conditions again.
Yeah, I asked him about that afterward, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I'll run at anything."
Oh yeah, but you did say we're going to have one Friday night where the games will be pretty much shut down because of rain. That's already happened.
That's a safe prediction.
Yeah,
that's a chalk bet.
It's interesting. It happened that early in the year, by the way. It happened so early in the season. How about Eastern Guilford? Didn't lose a game at all last year regular season. 2 losses this year. They played 2 teams that didn't play last year to get those losses, and Page and also Smith. Eastern Guilford, some people might say it's time to push that panic button, but don't see any real need to panic because they played well. Even in those losses, some of the points hadn't come like they wanted to. Some of the offenses tailed off some, but they're still playing competitive football and still could be a team to be reckoned with in the conference title hunt.
Yeah, they're still strong on defense. It's on offense where they've struggled. One of their best athletes, Christian McMullen's been out with an injury. He's supposed to be back in a few weeks. He'll help their running game. Darryl Roberts has been okay, but they've struggled to run the ball. I mean, I think I had him for 3 yards net rushing in the loss to Page, and they didn't run the ball particularly effectively against Smith. And they've got to get their offense going when they get into conference play. But no, not panic button, not yet, not anywhere near that stage. It's still a good football team, a well-coached football team with some good players. They're going to be okay.
And the leading rusher, a lot of those games has been the quarterback Dominique Graves. Yeah. He's got to get some help as far as, like you said, running the ball goes.
Yeah, whether it's Roberts picking it up a little bit when Christian McMullen comes back, him jumping in there, but they've got to run the ball. Doug Robertson coached teams. He's an offensive line guy from way back as a player, as an assistant coach. They want to run the ball. They want to be physical up front. If they can't run the ball, the way that they had to come back and try to win that or tie that game with Page, throwing the ball that much, that's not Eastern Guilford football. They want to throw when the opportunity presents itself, not because they have to, and they're not able to do that right now.
And you look at their opponent from last week, to beat them, Smith, on the road this week at Mount Tabor. Mount Tabor's homecoming. Eastern Guilford plays host to Williams. Both of those teams have some fairly good challenges this week.
I don't think Williams is gonna. I think Williams is walking into a bad situation playing Eastern Guilford this week. I don't think they're going to be able to do much against them. But that Smith trip to Mount Tabor is going to be a real challenge. That's a tough way to open conference play for them. A real challenge. Their defense, you're going to have some of those guys in later. Their defense is good enough to win a lot of football games. It's on the offensive side, a little bit like Eastern Guilford, where they've struggled. And if they can, young sophomore quarterback Jordan Williams, if they can get him going, get him a little more confidence there, they can be a real challenge to Dudley, to Southwest, to Mount Tabor, a lot of the teams in that conference.
It's an interesting layout, too, because you had the one game against Southeast. Southeast beat Smith 11-6. Last week's game, I think, was 14-11. So you talked about the defense playing well. And like you said, the offense has got to pick it up some for Smith. But they've played some low-scoring games. They probably could have picked up maybe another win there too.
Yeah, I mean, I went through crunched the numbers. They're giving up 11.4 points a game. The problem is they're only averaging 12, and that is a very thin margin, and that's kind of played out in their record this season. But defensively, 11.4 a game with the schedule they play, that's solid.
Look at Northeast Guilford. How about that win against Ragsdale? That was a big win for Coach Earl Bates to get his guys headed in the right direction. And big win last Friday. Not long to celebrate. They got to go to Eastern Alamance next, which is a huge challenge going down to face John Kirby's Eagles down around Mebane.
Yeah, that's a good football team every year. John Kirby's been a Shrine Bowl head coach. He's had that program up and running strong for a very long time, and they have great numbers. I heard something like 120 kids out for football this year. For a 3A school, that's very impressive. And
and the numbers keep growing. They had one kid, the Kingsley kid, a couple years ago came in. That was an interesting situation there. And that just turned kind of sour after the year was over, and they had to forfeit some games for football and basketball both. But I mean, there's no lack of talent.
That had nothing to do with their program.
No, there's no lack of talent at all down there.
Well, and it wasn't anything that anyone in that program knowingly did.
That was kind of a card they were dealt from outside. It came in.
And he had been there in middle school, and nobody caught the issues in middle school, and then some questions were raised at the high school level, and they had to forfeit some games.
For a freshman, that kid was huge. I remember seeing the Northern Guilford game. That kid, for a freshman, at least listed as a freshman, that kid was very big, and he should have a college future somewhere if the kid is willing to work. That's
he's at Syracuse University now.
Ooh.
He, as it turned out, shouldn't have been a freshman. He went from being a freshman to being a high school senior to being a college student.
Wow, that's pretty quick.
They found some records that were not as accurate as they could have been.
Interesting.
In his past,
I did think of that kid in our pregame. We were talking about the Dudley Panthers a few years ago and how we talked about injuries and how some kids got knocked out. I remember the kid from Dudley now, the guy who was the kid that hurt his neck was Brandon Burks.
Yes.
Came to me while we were thinking and talking. I got to get this kid's name out of my mind before it ruins my whole evening. But Brandon Burks was the catcher for the baseball team, later became an infielder. They got hurt playing football, but good kid back in the day, and a good kid too back to the Northeast. Is it Tariq Ridges?
Tariq Ridges is the quarterback.
The show right now. They're not throwing the ball much, not for a lot of yards anyway, but they're running the ball pretty well.
Not terribly effectively, but he's run for, I believe, 319 yards, passed for about 110, 120. They're a run-based team, and that's the way Earl Bates' team was last year when he was at Southern Guilford. Early in the season, he kind of figured out he didn't have a quarterback who could throw the ball there, went to a lot of running plays with the quarterback, and he's done the same thing this year at Northeast. And part of it this year was a quarter into the first game, they lose Brevin Allen, the best athlete on that team for the season.
And their record's what now, 3-1?
3-1.
To be 3-1, losing Brevin Allen, a D1 prospect all the way, that's pretty darn good to survive and keep going like they are now. Because they're already hitting the hump where they're trying to get close to the number of wins. What did you get, about 4 wins maybe last year, Max, right? And they're approaching it already.
4-8 last year. Did make the playoffs last year. It's going to be a little harder this year. You're not going to get in just because you finished third or second or fourth or whatever. That's going to be Max Prep's power rankings. We've yet to see what that formula is, but you can't just count on your conference finish unless you win your conference, or if it's a split conference, which we don't have here. If you're the top team in the conference in your classification, then you're in automatically. But it's going to be a little harder for them to get into the playoffs this year, but I think that team in that conference is more than capable of doing it and maybe winning a game.
Important game for them, Northeast Guilford tomorrow night at Eastern Alamance. Another big game, I think, next week they've got Northern Guilford hosting them.
Correct.
In some ways, it's a big game tomorrow night. In some ways, too, you got to keep it in the back of your mind. We've got to have these guys taught, educated, prepared. We hope to win tomorrow's game and do our best to get. We don't lose that game next week is ultimately just as much as important next week, because that could go a long way to determine that playoff spot if they could beat Northern at Northeast.
Yeah, that game last year, Northern winning that game was what got them into the playoffs last year. When they were I believe 0-6 at one point, and I kept telling people they're still going to make the playoffs because of the way their schedule being backloaded with the 3 Rockingham County schools in their conference late in the year. I said if they beat Northeast, they're going to make the playoffs. And sure enough, they beat Northeast. They beat the 3 Rockingham County schools, Rockingham County, Moorhead, and McMichael, and they're in. I think you're right that this very early is a game that's going to determine some playoff seeding or whether you make the playoffs.
And you may have it on your records down at the News and Record and the highschoolextra.com site and their offices there. But I'm still trying to think. I know last year Eastern knocked off Northern. They'd been trying to get that monkey out their back or over the top of the camels, whatever. I'm still thinking of Northeast has beaten
They have
Northern.
not beaten Northern.
That's the thing about it. They haven't beaten Northern yet, and every year it gets bigger and bigger trying to beat those guys. And them remaining in the same conference makes it important too. The way it's turned out.
For sure. Like I said last year, that win got Northern into the playoffs.
How about Southern Guilford, Western Guilford, High Point Andrews, all still looking for the first win of the season. Western Guilford and North Forsyth, both teams 0-5, maybe the best chance this week to get in the win column.
In our predictions for the week, I have Andrews and Western Guilford both winning this week.
So Andrews
more about who their opponents are.
Andrews has Jordan Matthews.
Yeah, that's
so Matthews must be down.
They're 1-4, and if you look at who they've played and what some of those scores were, I think this is an opportunity for Andrews, and I certainly think that Western Guilford can beat North Forsyth. North Forsyth is really struggling, very poor defensively, and Western Guilford, if nothing else, can score some points and play entertaining football.
They've got a kid I could put on any team in the county. I'm sure he could contribute. That Edric Purnell, that kid can play.
Fun kid to watch.
Oh, yeah, just always on the go, always on the move.
Tremendous energy and gets everybody on the team fired up. And he's small, but boy, if you give him a little space, a little open grass, he can run and he can make things happen.
And I think that kid's got a shot somewhere to play college, maybe like a slot backer somewhere in college. He's got to be able to play somewhere because he's got that energy and got that speed and just a quick. I wish in some way, here's a kind of a hypothetical situation. Hypothetical with this, think about this could have happened possibly. I almost wish Mikey Kennedy would have stuck around at quarterback. He dropped, but if he stayed at quarterback, I put Purnell at the slot. I got Kennedy whipping the ball to Purnell. It may be
jet sweeps, other kinds of way. Any way you could get the ball in his hands.
And plus, he didn't have to take the snap and then run. He catches the pass, one movement, one little click, and he's gone.
Well, and if he's able to not have to take every snap, he's going to take a little bit less of a pounding. There's going to be fewer hits on him, and he's going to be a little bit fresher. But like you said, a really fun kid to watch.
And again, Southern Guilford, it's going to be extremely hard to get their first win at Page.
Yeah.
Because Page is on a mission right now. They're playing well, and they're playing well enough to keep rolling on like they are. I think they're ranked 8th in the state in the AP poll this week. So Southern's got their hands full, and as long as those Page kids stay healthy at the right positions, they're in good shape. They've got a big game. They got the big game next week too at East Forsyth.
They do. Next week is the week that we've got all those crossover games. The 5-4A schools from Guilford County playing the 5-4A schools from Forsyth County. It'll be very interesting to see how that plays out. But getting back to Southern Guilford and Page, worst case scenario for Southern Guilford, they have really struggled offensively. And Page's defense is as good as there is around.
Page's defense is in some ways ahead of it, a little bit better than their offense, right?
I think I would definitely say that right now. You know, they've got such a great linebacking core when you're talking about B.J. Turner, Alex Gray, Alan Tisdale. That's as good a group. I don't think there's a better group of linebackers in the state than those guys. And an aggressive front that plays like Page teams do, lots of slanting, blitzing, stunning. They're in the backfield on every play. And you can hit an occasional big play against them because of that, but they're going to have a lot of negative plays. And for a team like Southern Guilford that's struggling offensively with quarterback play, with running the ball, boy, that could be really ugly.
And you kind of look at Alex Angus. I'm sorry to call him Alex English, a former South Carolina, but Alex Angus in the backfield, defensive backfield.
Some
he's
big
as good as anybody around too. Some big play. He's got maybe 2 or 3 touchdowns just off picks. So that's pretty good this year.
Yeah, I mean it seems like he's been there forever. It's because he's been so good for his entire career.
Interesting thing could be then, whoever's game finishes first, Western or Andrews, will be the next team to get the next win. Whoever, by the clock, by the time-wise, whoever gets their game in first may be the new winner tomorrow night.
Yeah, and I think Southern Guilford's best chance is probably going to be when they play North Forsyth in their conference. I mean, that's a game that. Well, actually, no, they're not in the same conference anymore. That's right. They flipped.
There was Southeast
North Forsyth
and
is in the Piedmont Triad 3A. It's going to be tough for Southern Guilford, and it's a tough situation for those kids. Third coach in 3 years, having to learn another new system. It's rough. I mean, kids are resilient. Coaches tell you that. Parents will tell you that, but that's a tough situation.
How about this X Factor team? High Point Christian, 5-0, and they beat McMichael last week, beat the public school. Maybe that's their one shot in the public school this year.
Yep.
And they're off this week. High Point Christian, how good are those guys? That Caleb Hummel kid is doing quite well from what I read.
Former Northwest Guilford quarterback. They've got Lance Boykin, who's just a tremendous athlete, committed to Old Dominion, wide receiver, defensive back. He can do a lot of different things for them, kick returner. The interesting thing with the way the private school association does football is they don't determine what classification you're going to be in for the playoffs until after the season when they do their seedings. So if High Point Christian is still in Division II, which they won easily last year, they're going to win a title again. They are clearly the class of that classification. However, if they're in Division I, they're in with the really big schools in Charlotte Christian, Providence Day, Charlotte Latin, schools that have huge enrollment for private schools and big-time football programs. And they're off this week. Next week, they play one of those teams. They go to Charlotte Christian, and that will be a pretty good barometer of how they could do if they are put in Division I for the playoffs.
Yeah, Charlotte Christian mixes it up pretty well with the public schools. Charlotte. They real well
those
there.
schools play Charlotte Catholic. They play the other public schools down there. I mean, they're not ducking anybody, and they don't have to. They've got big enrollment, a lot of talent, and that'll be a huge test next week for High Point Christian. But if they're kept in Division II, I don't see how they would not win another championship. But Coach Scott Bell has done a phenomenal job of building that program up, and they don't have huge numbers, but the kids that they have are quality football players. They're well coached, and they're fun to watch. They have a lot of good athletes.
And you look at that private school layout. I know Cannon School, coached by Brad Hoover, former Carolina Panther. He's got that team probably headed in the right direction, doing a good job with those guys. Yeah,
that's a team that High Point Christian plays every year. I think they've already beaten them this year, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But they always play them. And he was a great player at Ledford, Western Carolina, in the NFL with the Panthers, and staying close to home and coaching at the high school level. That's great to see.
How about Southeast Guilford? They come off that loss to Dudley. Now they're going to be hosting Asheboro, and Coach Kevin Gillespie coming back to the county gets a crack at the Southeast Guilford Falcons, a team he knows pretty well from previous years while coaching at Page.
Well, I think he knows the layout there, and he knows about their defense. This is a different offense than he saw when Coach Fritz Hessenthaler was running the wing T at Southeast. But it's been tough in the first year at Asheboro for Coach Gillespie. They're 1-4.
He almost knocked off Wheatmore last week. Yeah, came close to Wheatmore. I thought he was going to beat Wheatmore. Held him to very late in the game. But Wheatmore
almost beat
hasn't
Grimsley.
Lost the game yet.
Yeah,
he sure
almost
did.
beat Grimsley. I mean, he's not that far away. And if Southeast Guilford has the kind of hangover this week that I think Eastern Guilford had last week, that's a real trap game for Southeast Guilford. I mean, that's a game that I would be a little bit nervous about, as you say, especially Coach Gillespie can coach. He's going to bring a good team up here, and we'll see.
He got Easter Safe at Grimsley, and what about Grimsley? They get some of their players back. Don't they? Some kids coming back healthy. Some of these kids been injured, like Niall Harris and a few others.
Mm-hmm. They're going to need some kind of spark.
They're going to need Niall Harris, Amon Harris. Going to need Ron Harris, Don Harris. Going to need Franco Harris, maybe
Maurice Harris, if he's still got any eligibility. They're going to need a little help. This East Forsyth team is not the juggernaut that they've been the last few years. They lost a lot of big athletic players to graduation, and Christian Beal, not the biggest guy in the world, but a great running back who's at Wake now and redshirting. They lost a lot of talent, and they did lose to Mount Tabor early in the year in a 4-point game, but they're still a very good team. Todd Willard does a great job with the Eagles, and Grimsley is going to need some kind of a spark, something special to have a shot in that game.
A lot of D1 talent on that Eastern Side team, right? No, the kicker, Litchke, is a pretty
Cameron
highly
Litchke is very
kid.
good. They've got Khalid Martin, whose older brother Nike Martin was a great receiver for them a few years ago and is now at NC Central. Khalid has all kinds of big-time offers, and he's a junior, Power 5 defensive back.
And who was the kid that went to Wisconsin? Was that
Madison Cone?
That was Cone, Wisconsin.
He is the first-string nickelback as a true freshman in Wisconsin. He enrolled early.
Starting, wow.
When they go to nickel, he's the nickelback.
Interesting.
And not the biggest kid in the world, but hits, can run, is a great cover guy, great student, perfect guy for Wisconsin.
What about Guilford County teams that seem to be on the rise right now? Who are some teams on the way up that are doing quite well for you?
Smith, we talked about earlier, you've got some of those great guys coming in later. Northeast Guilford, I think, is definitely trending upward. Going outside the county a little bit, I think Rockingham County has been a little bit of a surprise this year.
The new coach has helped up there?
Brad Baker, another guy off of the Reedsville coaching tree, a real close friend with Doug Robertson, the Eastern Guilford coach, also knows Coach Bates at Northeast real well. And Ragsdale at 3-2, I think, has been, considering the late head coaching change with Tommy Norwood leaving to go to South Carolina, I think they've done pretty well for themselves at 3-2.
And Ragsdale East Surrey this week. Is that right? Mm-hmm. At Ragsdale, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Should be a winnable game, shouldn't it?
I think so. East Surrey's 3-2, but when you look at who they played, I picked Ragsdale in that one. I don't think Ragsdale's going to blow them out or anything, but I think that's definitely a winnable game. And headed toward conference play for Ragsdale, this is one they could use.
And the teams, I guess, on the down would be the aforementioned, like the Southern Gophers, Western Guilford, and Andrews, all trying to find those wins.
Yeah, and common denominator in all three of those coaching changes.
Yeah.
And instability in recent years with coaches. Southern Guilford just kept it rolling through changing from Darrell Brown to Earl Bates, but another coaching change was a lot for those kids to handle. Western Guilford has had a lot of coaching turnover since Coach Causey.
There's been times this year they weren't sure who the coach was.
Yeah, because the head coach Brian Miller had some health issues he had to deal with. He's doing a lot better now, but that was an issue there. And Andrews, Coach John Patterson leaving right before the start of practice put them in a bind and a difficult situation. I think all three of those are really struggling right now. They just need some stability. They just need something to go right. And I think for Western Guilford and Andrews, the opportunity to win this week is one that they better grab.
How about to the college scene a little bit? Joe Sierra from the News and Record talking some college football. Mm-hmm. What about Duke and UNC in Chapel Hill? I think 3:30 on Saturday.
I think that'll be a very interesting game. North Carolina has been able to score some points, has struggled defensively, made a lot of mistakes, penalties, turnovers. Duke is kind of flying under the radar. David Cutcliffe is not the sexiest coach in the world, but the guy knows how to win. And
quarterback Daniel Gentleman's got a good competitive quarterback. It's Carolina's quarterback situation, Chaz Surratt, who we've seen just now sending athletes, done good for them, but still not as adjusted as Jones is right now.
Well, and
Jones got the year under his belt, makes a difference too.
Makes a huge difference, and it's just I just think that's going to be an entertaining game. I would not want to have to pick a winner in that one because I think that one could go either way. Just if Carolina cuts down on mistakes, and that gives them a chance. But Duke's a solid team. I mean, Coach Cutcliffe has done as good a job of building that program. The guy I'd compare him to there, they didn't have quite as horrible a history before he got there. They had some great years back in the day. Kansas State with Bill Snyder. The only time Kansas State's ever been relevant has been when Bill Snyder's been the coach. It's not quite that bad with Duke, but Duke struggled after Steve Spurrier left. Had one good year the next year with Fred Goldsmith, but really struggled. Was really bad there for a few years. And David Cutcliffe's done a great job of stabilizing that program and having a solid team that you don't want to play every year.
Yeah, had a down year last year, maybe only 4 or 5 wins, but right back with 3 big ones this year, maybe number 4 Saturday possibly.
Yeah, he's got a solid program.
How about you got Wake at Appalachian? You got Thomas Hennigan, got his first touchdown as a college player and playing extremely well. They love him up there.
Oh, yeah.
Teammates respect him, but Wake Forest coming in, that's a different bird, big animal. They're coming up to Boone this week. That's a major game in the mountains, no doubt about it.
Yeah, great to see Wake being willing to go up there and play them up there. I'm sure it'll be sold out and packed at Kid Brewer Stadium, and this is a game that, this is an opportunity game for App in terms of recruiting in the state. If they beat Wake up there,
they go head to head versus Wake for quite a few of these players.
Yeah, there's definitely that, and they're playing really well right now. I had the pleasure of seeing them against Savannah State a couple weeks ago, and they were just utterly dominant in that game. They've got a lot of talent on both sides of the ball, and Thomas Hennigan is fun to watch. Elijah Diarra-Suba's getting a lot of snaps on the defensive line. Kid from Page is up there. They've got a lot of kids from Guilford County in that program, and they should with the talent that's here and how close they are. But Hennigan, as you mentioned, returning punts from day one, starting wide receiver from day one. I talked to him a little bit before that game along with Spencer Turkin, and he said the first day he got up there he practiced, they had him on 4th string, and he was a little worried.
Wow.
And he said 2 days later he was on 2nd string, and by the end of the week he was in the starting lineup. But he's that kind of kid. He's a hard worker. You're never going to have to worry about him off the field or in the classroom. A couple of his other college options were Harvard and the Naval Academy in Virginia. So if you're looking at those kind of schools, student body president his senior year at Northwest, you know what kind of kid you're getting. And I think as the years go on, his role is going to expand there at Appalachian. He's going to be a 4-year starter and a team captain and all that other good stuff.
He's kind of a Christian McCaffrey, kind of a Luke Kuechly kind of guy.
Yeah.
Very headsy, very aware of what's going on in the surroundings, and he embraces that kind of thing. Some kids kind of look at it, hit it kind of hard, kind of back off, evaluate. He just hits it and just keeps going on.
And a better athlete, like those guys when they were in college or even in high school, a better athlete than he gets credit for being. Thomas Hennigan isn't going to blow you away with his 40-yard dash time, but and we've used this phrase before, he's football fast. He's one of those guys when the pads are on and he has to make an explosive move to get by somebody or run through somebody, he's got that burst, he's got that move. And some of the guys who run a 4.3 or 4.40 don't have that.
Yeah, they're using hips. They're breaking to the outside to avoid. He sometimes goes right at the other guy, knocks him over, and keeps going.
Yeah, I mean, he took advantage of their strength and conditioning program. When we saw him up there on the field before the game, he didn't have pads on, and he looked like an outside linebacker for them. He's 6'2", and he's all of 210, 215, and I'm sure low body fat. I mean, he looks like he could play linebacker right now, but he hasn't lost the speed. He's still got the hands. He's still got that explosiveness, and that's what college strength and conditioning programs do.
I happened to be flipping by some YouTube one day or some kind of video. I think maybe looking for some high school stuff. Came across a Northwest Cooper video when the girls basketball team won the state championship last year. They had like a parade for the team when they came back to school the next week, that Monday or maybe that Tuesday, whatever. But they paraded the team all over the school. They went through the hallway, they went down by the stadium, and they went all over. They was cheering by the other student body. But the guy who had the banner out front, a little handmade sign, he had another kid, the guy leading the parade, Thomas Hennigan.
Yeah.
I mean, he was just that kind of guy at Northwest. I don't know what the guy did. He was so much involved in that student environment, the student experience, high school experience, and it must be contagious. He's catching it in college too.
Yeah, he's a leader. Anytime the military academies want you, they're not just looking for your athletic ability or even your academics. They're looking for leadership, and he's one of those kids that, the service academies have to be the right fit for a player, and he decided that App was a better fit for him. But just the fact that they wanted him and wanted him badly speaks volumes about what kind of guy he is.
What about NC State and Florida State noon on ABC, lockdown game? People really need to check this game out. It's going to be exciting, we hope, anyway.
Yeah, I think the fact that Florida State lost DeAndre Francois, their quarterback, in their opener against Alabama, gives State a much better chance. Not that State didn't have a chance before. State has been one of those schools that every couple of years knocks off Florida State.
Yeah, I watched the game last night. Good point you bring up. 2012, Mike Glenn was the quarterback. He hit Brian Underwood for a touchdown pass with about 5 seconds on the game clock, tied it 16-all. Then Nicholas Sade came on and kicked the extra point, 17-16. They've always kind of had a way to find a way to kind of beat Florida State, even back in the Torrey Holt days. I think they beat them back then.
Yeah, and it carried on when Chuck Amato became the coach, who had come from Florida State. I mean, they give Florida State a game, and with a freshman quarterback, true freshman, James Blackman, playing for Florida State, and NC State having one of the better defensive lines in the country, start with Bradley Chubb. That's going to be interesting. If State's offense can get some things going, that could be a very, very interesting football game.
What about the Panthers and the Saints on Sunday? Panthers could go 3-0. They're not playing anybody else. Everybody says they're playing weaker teams, but I'd love to be 3-0 if I were them. That'd be great for me.
You can't be unhappy with 2-0, but their offense has sputtered at times. They've got to get things going a little bit there. Cam Newton still doesn't look 100% throwing the ball. I think anytime you have shoulder surgery for a quarterback who throws the ball, or a pitcher in baseball, it's going to take a while. And I don't think he's there yet. His accuracy isn't quite there, and there have been a couple balls where he would have zipped it out there the last few years before he had the shoulder injury that seemed to be maybe floating a little bit. And then he loses his favorite receiver, Greg Olsen. That really hurts. I mean,
I tell you what, the people embrace Ed Dixon. I've always loved Ed Dixon. Back with the Ravens, Ed Dixon, kind of the unsung guy. But Ed Dixon can catch the ball. You get it to him. He's a good one. But you got to have another guy backing him up. You got to have two of those guys.
Right. And Olsen is such a security blanket for Cam Newton. Yeah. He's the guy. A great tight end can do that for a quarterback. That tight end who can just fake the block and slip out and get you 8 yards, 10 yards, 11 yards, whatever, and maybe make more out of it. And Olsen's done that throughout his career. But those guys that you always know they're going to be there and they're going to be in a position to catch the ball, it's going to take a little bit of time for him to get that same comfort level with Dixon that he has with Olsen. The one thing he does have going for him is he's got Christian McCaffrey McCaffrey playing that same kind of role too as a running back receiver. This is going to be a challenge for the Panthers, I think, simply because New Orleans can score. They can score on anybody. Their defense, not so much. So, very interesting there.
What have they given up so far? 6 points this year, the Panther defense? Yeah. Not bad. A couple of final thoughts for Joe Sirera from the News and Record, highschoolextra.com, Greensboro.com. He and JP Mundy, Spencer Turkin, and Tim Nash all cover the games on Friday nights. We got this situation, Boise State, Virginia on Friday night. Take away from the high school. But the thing that got my attention about this game, Boise State's got this dog who retrieves the tee. They've got not a retriever, but a retriever. The dog runs out just like the Grasshoppers had their dogs.
I was going to say, Donald Moore probably is thinking, all right, how can we do something else in addition to what we're already doing with the great black labs that they have out at their games? I mean, it's really cool.
This dog retrieves the tee. I was going to ask Joe and other guests tonight, would you be willing to put on the dog suit at a ball game somewhere and go out and retrieve the tee as a dog, and maybe they'll pay you $50 a trip. They pay me $100 a trip. I'll put the dog suit. I'll go get the tee. You know,
if they give me mileage to get to Boise too, I'm there.
That's a good deal.
I'm there.
It's almost like rent a dog. We talk about rent.
Very cool.
This day and time. Yeah, the dog is unreal though. We call him the retriever, but I love watching that dog go get the tee, and it fits pretty well because the tee's not huge.
No,
it's not trying to grab a bat. Just
no. The ones that they use now are smaller, just kind of a circular thing, as opposed to the one that used to have the 3 legs and stood up a little higher, was a little bit heavier. But
someday they're going to take that little 3-prong metal device they use to warp on this. They'll probably let them take that to the field and just place it down and kick off that, I guess, when the day might come. One final question for Joe. If you had a lock of the week, what's your lock of the week? Would it be Duke beating UNC, Wake over Appalachian, or the Panthers past the Saints? What's your lock of the week?
Boy, well, if you're giving me those three games, I like App to beat Wake. I really do.
I'm taking Wake in that one. You're taking App. Okay.
Yep.
So App to beat Wake. And Hennigan, maybe he gets on the board?
Yeah, I think it's a possibility.
Well, I bet there'll be a crowd to watch that game.
Oh, yeah.
In person or on TV.
It'll be a tremendous atmosphere up there.
Where will you be tomorrow night?
I will be up in Reedsville, the self-proclaimed and rightly so football capital of North Carolina, Community Stadium. Northwest Guilford going up there to play Reedsville. The last real test for Reedsville, they have no control over their conference schedule, but the teams in their conference are 3-16 at this point. Their other opponent remaining after Northwest is Andrews, who's winless. This is their last test before the 2A playoffs. If they win this game, they're going to be 11-0 going into the playoffs again, and we probably won't really know what we're looking at with that team until about the 3rd round.
So they should be cruising after tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Joe, thank you much.
Thank you, Andy.
We'll see you tomorrow night. We'll see
always.
One of your men at the Grimsley Easter Scythe game. Probably
JP Mundy will be out there.
Mr. Nash at the game, probably somewhere.
Yeah, Tim, I've drawn a blank on where he is, but he's helping us out, and JP Mundy will be at Jamison Stadium for Easter Scythe and Grimsley.
Thanks to Joe Sirera, News and Record, highschoolextra.com, Greensboro.com. Check them out. We'll see Joe on the road. And